Hello. Hi. So, dear ladies, dear gentlemen, Madam Ambassador, our distinguished guest, I'm pleased to welcome you at the presentation of the chapter of the New York State Bar Association in Ukraine. And this presentation was organized by the Ukrainian Bar Association together with the New York State Bar Association and with the support of the European Union Project Pravo-Justice. I would like to warmly thank co-organizers for all the cooperation. So today's event is very important and timely. It is the start of cooperation of two associations divided by the ocean but united by the common goals and values. So it's the rule of law, development of the legal profession, ensuring quality, diversity and inclusiveness in the justice sector and in the sector in society in general. So these principles are even more important now in times of military threats that Ukraine is facing. And the cooperation between New York State Bar Association, Ukrainian Bar Association, associations with the history and reputations is more important than ever. So for the opening, I am pleased to invite Madam Ambassador Oksana Markarova, Ambassador of Ukraine to the United States. Oksana, please, you're welcome.
This cooperation between Ukrainian Bar Association and New York Bar Association is so important, and especially the opening of the chapter in Ukraine. As you rightfully said in your opening remarks, it's a very fragile, dangerous, and important time we all live in right now. Ukraine was not only attacked 8 years ago, but the spirit of aggression now is not only about Ukraine. It's about the fact whether the international rule of law still works. It's about the fact whether the Budapest Memorandum, who you as lawyers all know, unfortunately, is not something we have used in 2014 and 15 to defend us, but it should have been actually a document that we as the country that decided to give up on the third largest nuclear arsenal and once again confirmed in 1994 that we are peaceful, that we do not intend any offenses, that we do not intend to attack anyone, that we should have been protected by the other players, by the powers, by strategic partners. It's even more important if you look beyond the military threat that we are facing now, and you think that justice is one of the key values that Ukrainians share and actually crave. And building the rule of law in Ukraine is very important for ordinary Ukrainians, for businesses, for all of us who serve our country in the government, because ultimately this is what allows our country to develop. This is what allows us to defend our rights, both inside the country and outside. And this is what forms a legal basis for our aspirations to be who we are, to be democratic, to be European, to be part of all of the Euro-Atlantic structures, and to defend the democratic choice, the choice that Ukraine has made in 1991, reconfirmed during many revolutions, and recently during the Revolution of Dignity, the choice that our military, our volunteers, our veterans, our lawyers reconfirm every day by hard work. So it actually gives us not only joy to be at this start of the chapter in Ukraine, but also gives us hope that this more close relations between our two countries, both countries that believe in democracy and ready to defend it, will also allow us to cooperate not only at the highest level, not only at the level of the government, but also at the level of people who are behind the daily fight for justice. So we might be, as the former financier and the diplomat, we might be annoyed sometimes with all the advices that lawyers always tell us what we cannot do and why we cannot do it. But we really treasure and respect each of you, and we know that you are such an important part of every work that we're doing. So I would like to again congratulate you with this step. It's a first step in what we believe is a long and very deep cooperation and a long road to much closer relations between our two countries and between our two communities. So congratulations, and I wish you great discussions today, and please always use the embassy, our embassy here and our consulates as a resource. We are happy to help, cooperate, help you here, but also help you back home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's very hard not to agree with you that Ukrainian society has proven to be dedicated to the principle of freedom, democracy, independence. So, yes. And we are very humbled to have with us Honorable Counsel General of Ukraine in New York, Mr. Alexei Holubov. I would like to offer the floor to Mr. Holubov for welcoming remarks.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Your Excellency, Ambassador Markarova, NYSBA President Andrew Brown, UBA President and Chair of NYSBA Chapter in Ukraine, Pani Anna Ogrenchuk, ladies and gentlemen, friends. At the outset, I would like to thank the event organizers and hosts for the invitation. I am really honored and privileged to be with you today, participating in this historic event that inaugurates the chapter of the New York State Bar Association in Ukraine and signing the corresponding memorandum of understanding with the Ukrainian Bar Association. That's a historic moment, no exaggeration, since the NYSBA Ukrainian chapter literally starts a new chapter of Ukraine-US multidimensional bilateral ties. This time, we are strengthening collaboration in a sphere of legal profession. And I cannot but reiterate our sincere appreciation to the United States for unwavering support of Ukraine in these difficult times. Financial, economic, humanitarian, technical, diplomatic, Ukrainian boost back trade and restore my country integrity within internationally recognized borders. Today we all stand together, Ukrainian people and Ukrainian community abroad, diplomats, US authorities, civil society, and legal professionals now. This brings us optimism for reinforced international solidarity with Ukraine, especially in our countering ongoing Russian aggression, re-established European and global security, as well as for meaningful partnership with the United States and deepened ties with Euro-Atlantic and European structures. And in this regard, we particularly appreciate establishing by one of the oldest associations of lawyers in the US, New York State Bar Association, its presence in my country. As a very important gesture of solidarity from a legal profession in New York to their colleagues in Ukraine. We also praise joint intention of both sister organizations, NYSBA and UBA, to defend the rule of law throughout the world. It is principally important nowadays when the rule of law and international order is under serious threat. I wish all the participants of today's event a fruitful and effective discussion of its agenda items, and would like to particularly commend Mr. Andrew Brown, President of the NYSBA, for organizing the support of the entire NYSBA and all its members Mr. Edward Lenzi, Chair of the International Section of the NYSBA, for being a tireless supporter of Ukraine and the rule of law and being a promoter of the chapter and support for Ukraine among the legal profession in New York. And Ms. Anna Ogrenchuk, President of the UBA, for agreeing to serve as a chapter chair in Ukraine and supporting cooperation between legal professionals in Ukraine and New York. I'm absolutely sure you will succeed, and this new chapter is going to be amazing. I wish everyone health, well-being, every success in your endeavors, and of course, peace to all of us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your inspiring speech. So the strengthening the rule of law and the development of the legal profession are the areas that were supported by the US government and in particular by the US embassy in Ukraine for decades. And today we have with us Mr. John Ingstrom, resident legal advisor at the US Embassy in Ukraine. I would like to thank you, Mr. Ingstrom, to join us today and invite him to the floor.
Good morning to my friends in Ukraine and in the United States. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this event this morning. I am as they say, the resident legal advisor at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine right now. And what that means is I'm a prosecutor from the United States, from the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Department of Justice. And I've been associated with work in Ukraine since 2010. I lived in Ukraine from 2010 to 13. And then after that, I worked in Ukraine every single year on different legal programs, and then moved back to Ukraine in late 2019, where I've resided since then. I'm currently in the United States, though, and for reasons I think everyone probably understands at this point. But the work continues, and I welcome the New York Bar Association as another member of the team that will assist Ukraine in developing its legal system, its rule of law controls. I've seen over the years in particular that the system is developing, and it's progressing in a way that I think people who casually observe Ukraine don't necessarily see. Many of the changes are below the surface in legislation and in institutional mindset changes. And I expect that the New York Bar Association will bring great resources to especially the defense bar and the civil bar in Ukraine. And I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the U.S. Embassy when you need assistance, either in speakers or in materials. And we will do our best to support your program and look forward to your support of our programs. Thank you and good luck in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have a beautiful picture behind you.
Yes, thank you.
Finally, I would like to invite to the floor Mr. Andrew Brown, New York State Bar Association President. And I would like to thank you, Mr. Brown, for encouraging international outreach of the New York State Bar Association and for the newly established cooperation between your association with the Ukrainian Bar Association. Mr. Brown, you are welcome.
Thank you. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with all of you. It is an honor. I look forward to learning more about Ukraine and the members of your Bar Association at some point in the future when we can all get together in person. But right now, we're enjoying the benefits of technology. This allows us to come together from around the globe, and that is something that will serve all of us as attorneys. as those who are committed to this profession and the values that it stands for. I want to thank you for inviting me today. And this is a wonderful opportunity, and the timing could not be better. I want to thank you, Anna, for taking on the leadership that you have agreed to and to serving your attorneys and our association tremendously well, which I know that you will over the coming year. I also want to take a moment to thank some who are on this call and others who are expected to be on the call. Ukraine's ambassador to the United States, thank you for being here. Honorable Oksana Markarova, and I apologize for struggling with some of the names. The Honorable Alexei Holubov and John Engstrom. I want to thank all of you for being here. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge Ed Lenzi, who is the chair of our international section, for Ed's ongoing tremendous leadership of this section, especially over the past challenging couple of years. Today is a perfect example of what our sections can do, what our Bar Association can do. Bring us together. Technology allows us to do that. And thoughtful thinking brings us together, such as the international section has brought us together here today for our ongoing collaboration with the Ukrainian legal community. And I say ongoing because this is a start. I'm thrilled that we will be able to create a new Ukraine chapter for our international section. And we recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ukrainian Bar. Anna Ogrenchuk, thank you for all that you do. She has graciously agreed to chair this chapter, along with the Vice Chair, Ivan Horodyskyu. It marks the beginning of a strong friendship that will benefit and grow our respective organizations for years to come. The timing could not be more important. Democracy is fragile. We know democracy is fragile. And as I was driving here this morning to my office here in New York, I heard mention of Ukraine multiple times. Ukraine has been in the news a lot over the past number of months. It's in every newspaper every day. I and all of us have learned a lot about Ukraine recently. Now, I don't want to talk about the particulars of the matters and what's going on the ground. I'm not qualified to do that, but I will simply say that we as lawyers stand with you in recognizing the importance of rule of law and democratic principles. The coronavirus over the past 2 years has exacerbated the importance of who we are as a global community. It's also demonstrated that many in our communities are more vulnerable than ever, including impacting those areas of access to justice, which is the very foundation of our democratic system. We have a responsibility as lawyers. The world looks to lawyers as leaders. Our place in the world has always been grounded, at least in part, in our commitment to democracy and to human rights and justice for all. We challenge injustice when we see it. We must educate our public also about the importance of rule of law and why it keeps us free. Our fellow citizens must know that the rule of law provides that no one is above the law and that all are equally accountable. The work to develop and reinforce the rule of law is never done. Rather, the rule of law is a system of checks and balances that needs constant and perpetual testing, nurturing, and strengthening. Bar associations play a critical role in developing and sustaining the rule of law. Bar associations do support our most sacred ideals, rule of law, democracy itself, and the importance of justice for all. And we will continue to do that as the New York State Bar Association and invite all of you to join us in continuing that effort. It is only by fulfilling our promise to ourselves and our fellow citizens that we can be the leaders that we strive to be and hope to be, and that the world needs us to be. It is imperative that we strengthen our existing relationships outside U.S. borders. Many facing difficulties we face in these uncertain times. We require unprecedented cooperation and collaboration. We are far stronger when we pool our resources, our expertise, and knowledge than we are when we work independently. Thank you again for having me. I look forward to collaborating more and seeing many of you in Madrid this April. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are stronger together. It's for sure. So, you know, Ukrainian Bar Association has been established 20 years ago, and today we have around 7,000 members and units in all regions in Ukraine. And we unite not only the advocates, but all types of legal profession. So judges, prosecutors, in-house lawyers, civil servants, academia, and others. So the same is your goal. Our goal is to promote the rule of law, human rights, and development of legal profession. And we are actively engaged in legislative work and policy development. So our ultimate goal are actually the efficient justice system in Ukraine, business development, and the economic growth overall. So we are confident that, as you mentioned, democracy is fragile, and we are confident that the cooperation between our two associations will result in improved legislation, increased professionalism and ethics of legal profession, and in strong connection between justice sector in Ukraine and New York. So I would like to thank you, all the colleagues from New York State Bar Association, who contributed to the preparation of the Memorandum of Understanding between our two associations, and actually to the establishment of the chapter. And we look forward to working together and growing together. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for the welcoming remarks. And I would like to welcome all the participants of today's events who are with us online. And now I'd like to invite my colleague, Ina Lenova, who is executive of UBA, and she will hold the next session. So Ina, you're welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished speakers and guests of this event, from Ivan's kind permission, I will moderate this session because we do enjoy a lot of equipment and a nice background here in Kiev. So now, during this session, we will discuss in details what New York Bar Association does, what UBA does, and what are prospective areas of cooperation between our two activities. And to start this discussion, I would like to invite once again Mr. Andrew Brown, New York State Bar Association President, to the floor, and I would like to also give a brief introduction. Mr. Brown has been a member of the New York State Bar Association, if we have the correct information, for more than 30 years, and occupied various senior positions at different chapters of the association. And in addition, Mr. Brown co-chaired New York State Bar Association task forces on the future of the legal profession, which is a very pertinent topic now for Ukraine as well, and also a task force on racial injustice and police reforms, which are very interesting areas of expertise. Mr. Brown, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. And again, thank you for the opportunity to talk about who we are as a New York State Bar Association. We have been involved with international matters as well as domestic matters within the law since our early beginnings. We have over 70,000 members. We obviously have attorneys throughout the state of New York, but also in every state of the United States. And we have members in more than 100 countries around the world. And it's important that we address legal issues that are important to all of us. And quite frankly, as lawyers, many of the issues that you talk about in Ukraine are issues that we talk about all the time. And Anna, what is relevant to you and your bar association and to the attorneys in Ukraine, as you mentioned, are the same things that are important to us in the United States. And that is a point of commonality that I think we have to continue to remind ourselves about. We have, as an association, we're made up of many sections and committees. We have over 29 sections. I think we have something like 32 sections, and we have many more committees than that to serve our fellow members and community citizens pertaining to the legal issues that are important to all of us. Since the 1890s, our association has been deeply involved with the international community of lawyers, and that will continue to be the case. We've worked on creating the first court of international arbitration and the first international court of justice. We've worked on establishing a permanent international court of justice at The Hague. We've supported formation of the United Nations organization and implementation of the Marshall Plan. We've advocated for lawyers and judges worldwide, emphasizing the need for an independent bench and bar. Over the past 125 years, we have had an ongoing presence on the international stage. We are experts in New York law. New York law is the gold standard for international dispute resolution and international commercial litigation. New York law is the law of choice of contracts written throughout the world. New York City is the global hub for litigating and settling commercial disputes. By continuing to expand our global relationships, we work together to increase membership, exchange valuable legal resources, and recognize mutual support for the rule of law. One thing I want to point out, whenever I talk to people around the world, they're always a little bit surprised at this, but you don't have to be admitted to the New York Bar to be a member of the New York State Bar Association. We want you all to become members of our association and members of the Ukraine chapter. There are many benefits, services, discounts, and programs. For new attorneys, we have an active young lawyers section. We also have a section for women in the law. We have sections that speak to virtually every substantive practice area. And we provide an ongoing ability to network with the best and brightest in your respective field. And now with technology, it's that much easier, such as we're all talking here today. What a wonderful opportunity. We could not do that years ago, and many of us would have thought that we wouldn't have been able to do it easily just a couple of years ago. Now we all know how to do it effortlessly. Any New York State Bar Association member can become a member also of the international section. This section, I know Ed Lenzi is here and could certainly talk about it with more particularity, is made up of attorneys from across the state, across the country, and across the world, who regularly weigh in on issues of importance to the legal international community. We need you in our Ukrainian chapter for the benefit of that chapter and for the overall benefit of the association. We look forward to you joining us and becoming active. And we look forward to the ongoing collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, President Brown, for such a comprehensive description of New York State Bar Association and activities of the New York State Bar do sound very impressive. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions from our participants. And by the way, all the participants who are with us today have a possibility to ask questions in the group chat, and we will make sure that those questions are answered in the end of the event. Now, I would like to give the floor to myself. I would like to briefly contribute to the discussion by outlining those areas which are key priorities for the Ukrainian Bar Association and where we see potential for cooperation with the New York State Bar Association. Improvement of professional ethics of lawyers and compliance in law and in business is one of such key priorities of the Ukrainian Bar Association. We see now that Ukrainian legal framework on ethics is a bit outdated and does not reflect the needs and demands of the legal profession and of civil society in Ukraine. This is why we strive to develop unified, novel, innovative ethical principles that would be accepted by the professional society, and we hope that such a step will increase professional standards beyond and above existing regulatory framework. Gender equality in the justice sector and beyond is another priority of ours. According to official statistics of Ukrainian government, women occupy only 30% of senior management positions in state authorities. And an average salary of women in the sector of economy is 20% less than that of men. These are some numbers that show that gender equality should be a priority and should be something that should be discussed, and this is why it's a cornerstone of our activities. The experience of the New York State Bar in empowering women, boosting female leadership, entrepreneurship, especially in the justice sector, are of great value for Ukraine. I am very excited that today with us we have colleagues from the New York State Bar Association who chair Women in Law section, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about what the section does, and I'm sure that we could join forces towards this goal. In Ukraine, civil society and legal community becomes more and more engaged, interested, and involved in the process of selection of candidates to judicial position and to judicial governance bodies. New York State Bar Association has some good experience in this area, and our two associations could compare our practices, exchange best ideas, and learn from each other. As President Brown has rightly mentioned, the future of the justice sector is with youth. Tomorrow, current students will become judges, prosecutors, advocates, and to this end, both New York State Bar Association and UBA have programs and activities aimed at supporting students and young professionals in our countries. And more cooperation in this direction would be beneficial, and we're ready to extend cooperation in this field as well. Joint events, exchange programs, internships, and other activities could be a way to reinforce and further integrate legal professions in Ukraine and in the US, and in particular in the New York State. And of course, exchange of knowledge and best practices in fields of common interest, as again President Brown has mentioned, of big interest for Ukraine, especially in those areas where New York State is legislation of the New York State is a golden standard. International trade, IT sector, especially enforcement of court decisions against the state, which is a big issue for Ukraine. In these and other fields, we would be very glad to cooperate and share knowledge and exchange ideas and organize joint activities. Finally, networking and exchange of information between members of the UBA and the New York State Bar will further increase professionalism and will open more business opportunities for both associations. In view of this, we're extremely grateful to New York State Bar for all the benefits and discounts kindly allowed for the participants of the Ukrainian State Bar Association. This list, of course, is not exhaustive. I am sure that our cooperation will extend onto other areas that cover all the needs and interests of members of our both associations. At this, thank you for your attention, and then I would like to move on and to invite to the floor Mr. Ed Lenzi, who is the chair of the New York State Bar International Section, and I would also like to thank Ed for all the assistance in establishment of the chapter and in signing of the memorandum, and also in the preparation of today's event. Ed, please, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I am honored and privileged to be on this panel today and to show my support for Ukraine. which, as Andrew mentioned, the United States is behind Ukraine, and we wish that the situation resolves itself very soon and in a diplomatic manner. So, let me tell about the international section. The international section is a large network of lawyers worldwide, and over 80 chapters on every continent except Antarctica, basically. We are the face of NYSBA internationally. Before the pandemic, the section had for decades held 2 conferences a year outside the United States, and we hope to continue that tradition, starting with a meeting in Madrid this April, which Andrew mentioned. We also are planning on a global conference in London in the fall. And those are 2 traditional conferences that we hold outside the United States in the spring and in the fall. As we've mentioned already, the international section and NYSBA have entered into memoranda of understanding with a number of groups and bar associations the world over. Our most recent, of course, was with Ukraine Bar Association. Last year, we entered into memoranda of understanding with the Milan Bar Association, the Osaka Bar Association, the Philippine Bar Association, and the Georgia Bar Association. And so we're very proud to have Ukraine now as our latest chapter, and there will be more to come in months ahead, which will further cement the international community that NYSBA tries to create. I mentioned memoranda of understanding, the one that was entered into recently with Ukraine. A memorandum of understanding is a written agreement with a bar association in another nation, in which the bar associations, NYSBA and the bar association in the other nation, agree to cooperate in promoting exchanges between lawyers in both countries and advancing the rule of law. A memorandum of understanding expressly recognizes the importance of and the need for closer ties between people in the legal profession internationally. The bar associations in a memorandum of understanding agree also to promote the exchange of ideas about international legal issues through international programs, seminars, community outreach projects, and publications. The international section has a long-standing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, as it's known in the United States. In fact, the section's last global conference before the pandemic was held in Tokyo in November 2019, and it was titled, "A World of Many Voices, United in Our Diversity." The conference featured a human rights plenary that addressed DEI in marriage equality, and it also had a plenary that addressed human trafficking, an international scourge which must be fought wholeheartedly. In the early 2000s, arising out of that conference during the pandemic, we decided to update our bylaws, and the bylaws of the section now provide 2 new diversity officers, and the diversity officers are there to ensure that our programs, our webinars, our publications reflect diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would like to acknowledge those 2 diversity officers now. They are Diane O'Connell and my good friend and colleague, D.L. Morris. So I'd like to encourage folks to join the international section. As Andrew said, you don't have to be a member of the New York State Bar to join the New York State Bar Association. It's a voluntary organization. And I hope as a result of this, the Ukraine chapter grows even more. And I look forward to further dialogue and programs and webinars, and hopefully someday a conference in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you a lot for the information, which was very interesting. I'm sure a lot of our participants will get interested in activities of the international section. And I am also pleased to say that in order to ensure sustainability of the connections between our two associations, we have with us present not only chairs, but chairs-elect of the chapters. This is why I would like to invite to the floor Professor Azish Filabi, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, chair-elect of the New York State Bar International section, who will continue adds activities and adds work in the chapter. Please.
Thank you very much. And you pronounced my name perfectly, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here with all of you today. Thank you for including me in the discussion and giving me an opportunity to address you all. We also believe strongly in continuity and sustainability of the leadership of the section, and I look forward to working with you all under the parameters of this MOU. So as it's clear today, and as you all know, the MOU process is very important for us. It's a key way for us to be able to establish deep and ongoing connections between the two associations. With that in mind, I recognize that your priorities with the Ukrainian Bar Association are very similar to ours, particularly the idea of working on professional ethics and working on establishing frameworks for compliance in law and ethics in business. That happens to actually align with my role as professor at the American College of Financial Services. So I look forward to finding opportunities to work with you around those issues in particular. And as Ed mentioned, we have been particularly focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion within the section and within the legal profession overall. We'll be hearing soon from our head of the Women in Law section and learning more about the efforts of the New York State Bar Association on that front in general. I think that your priority of increasing women's representation in Ukraine is really interesting, and look forward to an opportunity to learn more about your efforts along those lines. So I think one of my takeaways is that we really have a lot of areas of collaboration, and in particular, I see opportunities for education between the two bar associations, and would suggest that as we think about the transition to my term, which will start in June, we take advantage of those opportunities to provide further education through webinars and other opportunities, because I think they would really provide some rich resources to both members of both associations, and there's clearly a lot to learn here. So I look forward to being able to work with you in that capacity. Thank you again for the ability to address the audience, and a fantastic event for today. Much appreciated.
Professor Filabi, thank you a lot. It looks like we will have a very productive year ahead of us, and from your permission, we will definitely get back on those areas that you've mentioned and boost and strengthen our cooperation in those areas. In preparation of today's event, we found out that the New York State Bar has a separate Women in Law section, and we couldn't miss this opportunity and not discuss activities of this section today. This is why I'm very pleased to invite to the floor Cheryl Geller, who's the chair of New York State Bar's Women in Law section. Cheryl, please, the floor is yours. We would be glad if you could share with us what the section does, what are your key goals, and how we could work together.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be part of this presentation of the New York State Bar Association chapter in Ukraine. Thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward to speaking with you now and, of course, working with you over the next few years. My term runs for 2 years, so it runs through June 2023. But we do have with us our chair-elect, Kim Wolf-Price, who will speak briefly after I speak. And again, for continuity, so that we all get to meet each other and hopefully work with each other often over the next few years. So the Women in Law section is a very dynamic section. We're actually one of the newer sections of the State Bar. There was a committee, and committees within the bar are limited in size. So there was a committee for about 30 years. And then about 5 years ago, we became a section. We grew really quickly. We now have close to 800 members. And we have a lot of really active and dynamic members who are very involved in all aspects of the section. And it's really an honor and privilege for me to work with them. It's just so wonderful. So we have members from New York, of course, from all over the United States and all over the world. Our mission is to advance women in the legal profession and all women under the law. So what does that mean in practical terms? It really divides into two missions. One is to focus on women in the legal profession, to help with career development, to help with working with sponsors and mentors, to talk about resources and information that we need to advance in our careers, to figure out why there are many women graduates from law schools, but not as many women in the upper echelons. And as you mentioned, we have the same issue here as far as how many women are running organizations or equity partners in firms or running the in-house counsel department of corporations. And so we're always exploring those issues and discussing them and seeing what we can do. We talk about how to build your business. We talk about women in politics, women in the judiciary, women in the courtroom, and all the different aspects of a career. The other part of our mission is to focus on the laws that affect women. So of course they affect us as women in the workforce, but they affect all women in the workforce. And those are issues like family leave or pay equity or sexual harassment, unfortunately, and all those things that are still going on. So those are the two areas that we focus on. So how do we do what we do? So we have within our section about a dozen different committees. Our committees are really active. They put on programs throughout the year. They have meetings. We advocate for legislation. And so I'll just give you a few examples of some of what our committees do. One is the annual meeting and programming committee. So that organizes educational programs on topics such as pay equity, sexual harassment, balancing professional and family responsibilities, career development, and again, women in politics and women in the judiciary. We also team up with other sections within the bar to work on programs. And we had a really fantastic program last year with the international section, where we invited women from 5 countries to talk about how the pandemic had affected their careers and what it was like. Were they going back to the office, what the plans were? That was last year, and we thought we were all about to head back to the office. Little did we know at that point. And so Anna, who's here with us from your chapter, the New York State Bar Association chapter in Poland, was on that panel. We had women speakers from Mexico, Germany, Italy, Poland, and Nigeria. So it was really quite fascinating to see how much we all had in common dealing with the issues all over, and then where things differed based on culture and politics in the various countries. So quite fascinating. We also hold networking events, and we have a virtual book club every other month or so. We have a speaker, an attorney who wrote a book or developed something, and we talk with them and we invite the speaker. And that's actually one of the advantages of Zoom, is wherever that speaker is, he or she is able to join us, and we're able to meet with the author and ask questions and speak directly to that person. We also have an emerging lawyers committee, which works closely with the young lawyers section of the New York State Bar to help new lawyers and to talk to law students about the practice of law and what they can expect. We have a general counsel committee made up of in-house counsel and general counsel. So we talk to them about new and emerging issues in the law. And then they also present what their day-to-day life is like. And if somebody's interested in going that way with their career, what they should expect, how to move, and how to handle those transitions. And then we have the Legislative Affairs Committee, which looks at legislation coming out of the New York State legislature and talks about, do we want to support it? Do we want to oppose it? Are there changes that we should advocate for? We make recommendations to the New York State Bar Association, which then goes ahead with their advocacy. And our committee has had real world effects on legislation coming out of Albany, coming out of our New York State legislature. So we're really very proud of their work. And then we have the Champions Committee, which plans social events and frank discussions about issues with our allies and champions in our missions. So those are just some of our committees. We also have a journal that we publish about twice a year with articles of interest to women attorneys and then stories about what's going on. So our event today will probably be in our next issue. And if anybody wants to contribute, we're more than welcome to. We accept contributions to the journal. We have our annual meeting program every year along with the New York State Bar in January. And we've named our annual meeting program after a trailblazer in the law, Edith Spivak, who graduated from Columbia Law School in New York in 1932. So you can imagine she was one of the first. And then we also have 2 awards that we give out each year to recognize women in the profession who are doing so much to advance women's careers. And those 2 awards are also named after trailblazers. So we recognize where we came from, and we're certainly look forward to where we're going. So we invite all of you to check out the webpage on the New York State Bar Association's site for Women in Law to see our other committees, to see our journal. Currently it's on there in digital format, to see what we do. We invite you to reach out to me, to Kim, to anyone from the bar if you want to get involved. We really definitely look forward to working with you. And again, I appreciate your inviting me here today. It's been an honor and privilege to speak with you and to hear from everyone else on this panel. And we are thinking about you and certainly supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian Bar Association. So thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Cheryl, so very much. It sounds like Women in Law section is quite a busy section, and all the activities that you've mentioned are very interesting for us, and I'm sure for the participants of today's event. I would like to mention that your experience in particular with the legislative development is something that we would like to know more about. Legislative community and UBA in particular support ratification of the Istanbul Convention that prohibits violence against women and advocates for gender equality. So I'm looking forward to more cooperation in this direction in particular. And now I would like to meet and introduce to everyone Kim Wolf-Price, who is the chair-elect of the New York State Bar's Women in Law section and who will pick up the activities of this section in June 2023.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, good morning to the esteemed dignitaries and colleagues on this meeting today. And thank you to the organizers for including the Women in Law section in this historic meeting. I agree with my NYSBA colleagues and want to second their comments in support of Ukraine in this critical moment and of all of our colleagues at the UBA. In my professional life, I serve as my firm's diversity officer, and I'm a longtime member of the New York State Bar Association's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Previously, I was an assistant dean at a law school, so your comments on working with young and new lawyers are very near and dear to my heart and something that I participate in quite a bit with the Women in Law section and the New York State Bar Association. That and, of course, the diversity, equity, and inclusion issues that you mentioned. As chair-elect, I look forward to working with UBA on programming and issues, but really I'm truly excited to learn from all of you on these issues of women in the law, students and young lawyers entering the profession, and other issues as well. We do a great deal of programming with the Women in Law section and work with the Young Lawyer section of the New York State Bar Association, as well as our Lawyers in Transition Committee. So we look forward to working with you on these critical issues. And I thank you all for having me here today. I'm honored to be with you, and I really look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We're looking forward to June 2023 to start our direct cooperation. And now I would like to invite Anna Dombrovska, who's attorney at law and partner at, I will try to say it correctly, Wardynsky and Partners, who's a co-chair of New York State Bar Association chapter in Poland. And Anna also happens to be an officer of the European Regional Forum in the IBA, and we have already established good cooperation with Anna on other activities that we plan jointly with the International Bar Association. However, today, Anna, welcome. We would be grateful if you could share some of your experiences in co-chairing the Polish chapter of the New York State Bar Association. Please.
Thank you very much. Hi, Ina, Anna. I'd like to start by saying that it wasn't the plan that I was going to be here today. I sort of got in through the back door, and I'm extremely happy that that happened, because this gives me an opportunity to, well, we've been talking about NYSBA for the first time during this webinar, but I'd like to advertise Ina and Anna's enthusiasm right now. I mean, it's obviously not necessary. We can all see that they are really very competent and very excited to be here. But I'd like to say that we got in touch together because I am, as an officer of the European Regional Forum of the IBA, I am working on the mental well-being issues in the mental well-being working group and trying to get a discussion started on the mental well-being issues in the legal community. And I was extremely excited to learn that Anna and Ina were very excited to work with us on that. And we're working and preparing a webinar that's going to take place in March And we're going to discuss these difficult topics, especially in our part of the world, because even though this discussion, not easy, but has already started in the Western world, I think in our part, it is still a little bit unusual. It is, it's thought that lawyers are not allowed to have any emotions. They have to be, rock solid and very, very serious. And sometimes a lot of the times that's not the healthy way to go. But anyway, that was my beginning with Anna and Ina. And during one of our conversations, Ina invited me to participate as a spectator of this event, and I told her then that actually I was already planning to do that because I was very excited to see Ed's information on the MOU, and I would be joining to hear all these distinguished speakers. And Ina came back to me, inviting me to say a few words about the Polish chapter, and I must admit I am very delighted to say that. When preparing for this presentation, I had to go back and see how long I've been a member of the New York State Bar Association. And by the way, I am a sitting example of what Andrew and Ed have been saying. I am not a US qualified lawyer, a New York qualified lawyer, so it is possible and it works. And you can also be a chair of the chapter and be very much welcomed by these amazing people. So I strongly encourage you all to join. Anyway, so I'm here. And I would like to say that I've been a member of the NYSBA for the past 8 years. That was amazing for me to realize that. And during those 8 years, I really had the pleasure to meet and become friends, really friends with a lot of the members and of the New York State Bar Association, the international section. And it is really true that these are lawyers from all over the world who care really deeply about building a strong, healthy, and very mindful legal community. What the ambassador has said at the beginning, Ambassador Markarova said, Ukraine has had its challenges in the past years. Poland is fortunate not to be having such serious challenges, but nonetheless, we are experiencing our own. And I must say that the New York State Bar Association has been extremely empathic and supportive throughout the whole process. Some of these challenges directly refer to the rule of law in Poland and the freedom of the jurisprudence of lawyers and judges. And the NYSBA has been active in voicing their concerns and letting the community know that their support is there and they're here to help. So a little bit about the Polish chapter. I think we've had a bit of challenges ourselves concerning the membership of the Polish chapter. But from what I'm seeing and hearing here today, I feel very much motivated to get in touch with the bar, because I see that is a very good way to go to get more members on board. A few years ago, we organized one of the spring meetings that Ed was talking about in Krakow, and the interest in that spring retreat from the Polish legal community was really great, and we had a very good outcome. So we see that the Polish chapter has a lot of potential. We're very happy to have new friends in the Ukrainian chapter that's going to be very keen on developing and expanding. Hopefully we'll be able to cooperate with you. So welcome, and thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your very kind words, and thank you for joining us today and sharing some good practices of the Polish chapter. And we're looking forward to more exchanges and more meetings and more discussions on how to further develop and boost our chapters. And now I would like to invite to the floor Sergey Hoshowski, our good partner, and I would dare even say good friend, who has been very helpful in making all this happen, starting with a memorandum and ending with today's event. Sergey is a chair of the Committee on Eastern Europe and Eastern Europe of the international section of the New York State Bar Association. And if I'm not mistaken, Sergey is the head of the Ukraine task force, which has been recently established at the New York State Bar. Sergey, thank you for all your support. And please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. And it's a special day for me on both personal and professional level. Being from Ukraine and practicing law for about 20 years in New York, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. I'm really glad that it finally came, and especially at this trying times when we can offer support of the entire Bar Association to Ukraine and to legal profession in Ukraine. So it's very, very timely. And on a professional level, as the chair of Committee on Eastern Europe, International Section, New York State Bar, I'm really looking forward to work with all of you to increase cooperation between the New York State Bar and Ukrainian legal profession. Our committee is one of the regional committees of International Section. So we help practitioners who practice in Eastern Europe or have interest in Eastern Europe, and we share information, updates, and hold events to learn more about countries of the region and to development in those countries, and also help lawyers with practical tools how to do business there, and vice versa. For lawyers, for legal profession from the region, how to do business in New York, how to do business with New York lawyers, and how to increase the cooperation. And as Anna mentioned, we also have regional meetings, and one of the recent meetings was in Krakow, which was a great platform to increase cooperation between professionals in the region. So really looking forward to have such meeting in Kyiv one day. I'm looking forward to further work with you.
Thank you, Sergey. We too look forward to a meeting in Kyiv in very peaceful times, very safe times, with no major challenges before national justice system. And colleagues, I'm sorry, my colleagues tell me that President Brown lifted his hand and I have missed it. President, if you have any questions or comments, please.
No, and that was my mistaken handling of our technology.
Well, it's always nice to hear you. Thank you for checking in. And on this note, I would like to invite to the floor our colleague, Ivan Horodyskyu. Ivan is the member of the management board of the Ukrainian Bar Association. And Ivan has also been appointed as a vice chair of the New York State Bar Association chapter in Ukraine. I would also like to use this opportunity and thank Ivan for all the coordination and his assistance in establishing the chapter and in the preparation of today's event. Ivan, please, the floor is yours. I see that there are some technical problems and Ivan is not with us. Hopefully he joins later and we can go back to this presentation. If not, we will make sure that more events and discussions will follow. I would like to use this occasion to invite all our online participants to ask questions, and we will be answering them. The questions can concern any matters at all that fall within the scope of activities of the New York State Bar Association or UBA, and we all would be happy to answer them. To start with, I have one question, and I will read it. And I guess it is addressed to the New York State Bar Association colleagues. Good afternoon. I am a lawyer from Cellcom Company. My question is about helping young lawyers. From my own experience, I know how difficult it is for an ambitious young lawyer to start working in his chosen specialty. A huge number of young people, due to the difficulty of realizing themselves in this specialty, leave it simply because all companies want to get a specialist ready for anything. How can an international association help in this program?
Well, let me just say first, and then I'll turn it over to Ed to speak to the international section. But the State Bar Association recognizes that the importance of younger lawyers is important to all of us. And we all have an obligation to these younger lawyers to do all that we can. As a bar association, we have a young lawyers section. We strive to bring in lawyers as early as their law student career. We reach out to them. We make membership fully available to them at no cost. And even as a new lawyer, your first year, you don't pay anything. We want you to be involved. We want you to get engaged. You have the ability to participate in all the benefits that we have, including programs that are geared to job development, career development, the educational programs, a whole host of CLEs, continuing legal education programs, and you can get involved. And we want you to, and we realize that it's important for your involvement to not only to you as individuals, but to our Bar Association overall. Ed, perhaps you want to speak to aspects of the international arena.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. As I mentioned earlier, the international section has over 80 chapters around the world. And in addition, we have numerous committees on a variety of subjects, one of them being Sergey's committee. And those committees and those chapters offer opportunities for young lawyers to network with people in their own country and also with people around the world via the committees. And I think that in doing so, they not only can learn from people with experience, but they may make connections and build their own network based upon that. And as we all know, in the practice of law, building a network is kind of everything. So the international section is, I think, if I do say so myself, an outstanding place for a young lawyer to get involved and meet people who do what that lawyer does or do what that lawyer wants to do. Azish, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to chime in. I completely agree with you both, and I think the importance of the network can be emphasized in that we have the opportunity to create a community of practice. So really, when it comes to specialization, there's the subject matter piece, which is very important, but being able to find mentorship opportunities to work with people who have established a practice in your area of special interest. And I think the international practice of law is overall a specialty that can be particularly difficult and challenging to get a footing in. You can have a substantive practice in a domestic space that could also be parlayed into an international practice. And I think our community in particular helps provide examples of other lawyers who've done that can be motivating for young lawyers as they learn about the global opportunities that are available.
Thank you for the information. Our discussion inspired me as well. So from your permission, I will ask a few questions that also were voiced by some of our members previously. Currently in Ukraine, there is an issue with the protection of rights of legal practitioners, judges, advocates, and other categories of legal professionals. In the course of the last year, UBA made 2 statements with regard to violation of advocates' rights. And advocates complain that sometimes law enforcement authorities initiate criminal proceedings against them. as a measure of undue influence on them. The question is whether something like this happens in the New York State, and whether the New York State Bar Association has any mechanisms, any tools for ensuring protection of professional rights and interests of legal practitioners.
Let me speak to that first. The answer is yes. We speak out on behalf of our members, whether they be attorneys or judges, all the time. If we believe that judges are being overly criticized by the media or other sectors of our society, we speak to the issue. It's important that judges remain independent, able to look at issues of law and speak to those issues of law without undue interference from the outside. So that is something that we take very seriously, and we speak to it regularly. We may address it with members of the legislature, the governor's office, the media. We make it a point. If we think a judge is being, again, overly criticized, we will do whatever we can to protect that judge and make it very public. And we've been very successful in that regard. And the same thing can be said with respect to legal practitioners. It's important that our lawyers be able to do what they do. Protect clients, look out for the well-being of the profession. And if we think that a lawyer is being overly critical for what he or she is doing, we will speak to it. We believe that's part of our obligation to protect the well-being and the interests of all of us in being lawyers. We cannot wear the title and then have our hands tied. So as a bar association, we will do all that we can to look out for the interests of our lawyers and judges for well into the future.
Thank you, President Brown. And since you mentioned the membership, this reminds me that we received a lot of questions about the membership in the New York State Bar Association. So if I may ask, who can become the member of the New York State Bar Association? Whether it's only licensed advocates from Ukraine, whether judges, for example, can become members, or private legal professionals, because, for example, notaries, private bailiffs, registrars, law enforcement officers are members of the UBA as well. Would the membership be open to them, or it's focused on practicing attorneys?
Right now, the Bar Association has been largely limited to attorneys. There is opportunities for those who are not admitted outside of the United States to join us. If you are not a member of the New York State Bar Association, you can still join and have access to the benefits and privileges that we provide as a bar association. We are a voluntary bar association. We're not part of the government. We set our own rules. In that regard, we're the largest voluntary bar association in the United States. As far as anyone outside the United States who wants to join us, who's an attorney or a judge, you're more than free to join us, and we want you to join us. Ed, do you want to speak to that in any more particularity?
Only to add that in terms of activities that we have, we support the rule of law, and we get out there and support ensuring that attorneys have access to justice. And in terms of our membership, it's open to judges, to attorneys, to people in the legal profession. I know in some nations, a person could be a lawyer, but is really doing in-house work that would distinguish them from outside lawyers. It's a big tent. We can accommodate lawyers and legal professionals and judges in terms of our membership. And as Andrew said, and it's worth reiterating, you do not have to be admitted to the New York State Bar to join the New York State Bar Association.
Thank you very much. We also have a question. Maybe you have some experience in this area. In Ukraine, COVID restrictions and COVID measures had a significant effect on work of courts, in a sense that digitization, equipment was not ready for the COVID virus to come, and now the Ukrainian judiciary is struggling a little bit with remote review of cases. Are there any IT tools, any interesting solutions that are implemented in New York courts that help to solve this issue? That you know?
We had, unlike, or not unlike other areas around the globe, we had problems in the United States, both within the practicing bar and with respect to operations of courthouses. Many cases initially went into standstill mode. We all had to get up to speed in working remotely. That is true of our attorneys in all sizes of firms, big firms, small firms, solo practitioners. And most of our members are in smaller firms or solo practitioners. We all had to find a way to continue on, and that meant working remotely. And the same is true for courthouses. If cases were going to continue to move, we had to find a way of doing it electronically, remotely. And I'm pleased to say that we all figured that out in rapid speed. Our courts got up to speed. We were able to continue to engage with the judges to carry out our work. We utilized virtual platforms to do that, not unlike what we're doing right here today. Case arguments proceeded, appearances of all types proceeded, mediations took place, arbitrations took place, trials took place. We figured it out, and we had to keep cases moving along, and we've done that. Unfortunately, we are now moving back into having matters proceed live, but that is still an ongoing process. And here in the United States, now we begin to ask, what is normal? What will be normal? Usually when we talk about normal, we talk about getting back to how things were, but many of us are thinking, well, that would be something lost in that if we were to simply go back to the way things were fully. In some aspects, virtual engagement has benefited us, and we will continue to do that. We want to hold on to that. We can continue to move cases a lot more swiftly and aggressively by using virtual platforms, at least for certain aspects of case handling. And the judges seem to have embraced that position. The practitioners seem to have embraced that position. And we're all now different in the way that we see handling of cases than we were just 2 years ago. So I think that will continue. And when we talk about new normal, about the normal, what is normal, it's really about what will be the new normal. And that's still shifting itself out.
Thank you a lot. We have a few more questions from our participants. One of them is whether New York State Bar plans to extend its cooperation onto other countries as well.
Ed, you want to speak to that?
Surely. Yes, we have we have memoranda with bar associations around the world. I think I mentioned Milan Bar Association, the Philippine Bar Association, the Osaka Bar Association, the Georgian Bar Association, a bar association in Paris. I could go on. And those are, the memoranda of understanding are so important in terms of outreach and cooperation between the two bar associations in the outside the U.S. and in the U.S. in the New York State Bar Association. So we are always seeking to enter such agreements, such arrangements. In fact, I can't say which nations they are, but we have 4 in the works right now, hopefully to be signed sometime this year.
Thank you. Another question is from, I assume, either students or young practitioners. The question is whether, and I will translate it into English right away, whether Ukrainian students who graduate from universities could obtain contracts or agreements about internships at law firms in the US. I assume this means if they join the association.
Well, let me say this. That's a rather particular question, and it really would be a matter of looking at the individual case and seeing what we can do. But we advocate for all of our members, and we have an enormous wealth of resources for the benefit of all of our members that all of our members can take advantage of and are encouraged to take advantage of wherever they are around the globe. So if there are certain forms that the individual questioner is asking about that our association has within its bank of resources, then yes, you would have access to that.
Thank you very much. We have one more question.
If I may add, we do, the New York State, the international section has had internship programs and we continue. It's been a little difficult given the pandemic, but we facilitate helping young lawyers in other nations get an internship at a large firm here in New York City. And it was always a very active program. I think I had to slow down because of the pandemic, but hopefully once we get through this, we'll be back to encouraging internships with firms around the world and in the United States.
Thank you.
Actually, if I may, maybe Cheryl, you'd like to speak to the issue of internships and opportunities that your section may offer.
It's not something we've developed to this point, but it's certainly something that we can talk about. We do plan to start a mentorship program where we'll be working with more experienced attorneys, working with more junior attorneys or emerging attorneys to talk about sponsorships and mentorships and ways that we can help each other and guide each other. One interesting piece about the Women in Law section is that we have attorneys from so many different backgrounds and so many different career paths. I'm an employment lawyer, other people in the group are family lawyers or prosecutors or criminal defense attorneys or all different areas of the law. And so antitrust, and it goes on, we have people from the judiciary. So there's just a wealth of resources of knowledge of people you can talk to, and we could all really turn to each other for those, for information or for questions and help each other out.
Thank you. We also have another very specific questions about what the New York State Bar Association chapter in Ukraine will do and why Ukrainian lawyers should become its members. What are the benefits, if you could sum it up? I guess it's a question for both parties. If New York colleagues would dare to sum up the benefits.
Well, some of the benefits are the ability to not only attend, but to create webinars that focus on particular legal issues. So your members could team up with our members and do a webinar on a subject relevant to Ukraine beyond what's going on now. I mean, maybe something about the practice of law in Ukraine and a comparative, comparing it to New York or to the United States in general. There are also publication opportunities. We have a publication called The Practicum, where we publish articles written by a variety of people with a variety of backgrounds. The subject matter is pretty large, and we also have opportunities to, as I said, it's a little hard right now, but when we get back to the ability to travel and go places more freely, the opportunities there. I mentioned the conference in April. If people from Ukraine attend that, then they can meet with members of the New York State Bar Association in Europe, from the United States, from Latin America. A great many opportunities at those conferences, and I really look forward to holding them again starting in April with the meeting in Madrid.
Yeah. Okay, so from my side, I must say that the legal profession is global. So if you want to be like the best in your profession, you have to be global. And being a part of New York State Bar Association and the big family of it, it's the opportunity to have the best examples, best practices. And of course, we are inviting everyone to join New York State Bar Association. So yes, so being global, it means being professional.
Thank you, colleagues. Another question. As the speaker from Ukraine pointed out, the legal profession in many civil law countries includes notaries, bailiffs, and judges, as well as legal advisors and lawyers who appear in court. It would be good for us to have a further clarification on how members of the legal professional in general in civil law countries can become associate members of the New York State Bar Association and its international section. Ed, I suspect the ball is with you.
I think that, we take a broad approach to who can join the association. I mean, a person has to be involved in the law, in the legal profession. But my understanding is that, as you said, around the world in civil jurisdictions, there are professionals who practice in the field of law who don't necessarily call themselves attorneys, right? For example, notaries public. Here in the United States, that means, and a notary public here is very different from a notary public in a place like Spain. And the opportunities are there. And if a person wants to join, my suggestion would be to reach out to us. They can reach out, the person can reach out to me. Or to our international relations manager, Kara 4G, who's at NYSBA and does a fantastic job. So, it's a big tent that we're trying to build here. And we recognize that a person in the legal profession in another nation may not have an equivalent here, but that person is still in the legal profession. So I suggest that anybody who's interested, reach out and contact me, or as I said, contact Kara 4G, and we'll look at the application, and hopefully the person will be enough in the legal profession that they can join the New York State Bar Association.
Thank you. Another question is about the documents. Which documents would make cooperation between advocates in Ukraine with our American colleagues official? Thank you. And I will try to answer. I think the question is about the memorandum. Ukrainian Bar Association and New York State Bar Association signed a memorandum of understanding in December last year, and in December of last year, Ukrainian chapter of the New York State Bar Association has been officially established by the decision of the Executive Committee of the International Section. These are the documents that we have now, and these are enough. We also have a question, speaking about business opportunities, we also have a question about whether someone could contract lawyers from the Ukrainian chapter or in the US. I think the answer... I will try to read the question in Ukrainian. Чи можна замовляти послуги у адвокатів у відділенні в Україні? А в яких видах судочинства може бути замовлена робота, послуги в Україні та в США? Та в яких штатах і в яких сферах судочинства адвокати у відділенні в Україні мають найбільшу адвокатську практику?
So actually the question is how you could help to find the right lawyer for the specific case through Ukrainian chapter. So how we can communicate on a business matter, on a client matter.
Yes, we often facilitate that We have what we call the listservs, and it's basically a mass email that goes out to people who are in the international section. And oftentimes those inquiries are, does anybody know an attorney in France who could help with this particular type of contract case? And that's one of the ways in which we facilitate getting lawyers together and getting them to the people they need to meet to do business together. And again, it's the networks that are built by membership in the chapters and the committees. If a person is on a particular committee, that person's going to be linked to other people doing that sort of work in other countries. So that's another way in which the chapter network and the committees serve to facilitate doing business in the law.
Thank you. Thanks.
I encourage our participants to ask more questions if more information is needed. I don't see any other questions as of now.
I'm sure that we will have more questions during our cooperation. I think we will make a written summary on this event, and we're going to share with all our members, just for everyone to be clear what are advantages, how to become a member of the chapter and actually New York State Bar Association. So everything will be on our website, and we're going to share through mail as well.
Yes, and
so maybe, dear colleagues, maybe you have some question as regard to Ukrainian Bar Association. Okay, so I think yes, we're going to have for all the questions during our cooperation.
Well, I will say, Anna, if I can say this, today we've just talked about a small sampling of who we are as a bar association and what we do. We can offer so much more. And the more that we come together like this and talk about our respective bar associations and what our concerns and interests are, we'll come to realize how much more collaboration we can do and what resources we really can bring to the table. Because we want to hear from you in the Ukraine. We want to learn from you. We want you also to learn from us, spend time with us. And virtual platforms like this make it easy. We can very easily engage each other and get together on a meeting tomorrow or next week. We can bring colleagues to the table. If there's any area of international law or any area of law that you have a concern with, or an interest in, we can bring established professionals within that narrow area together very quickly, very easily. And also through collaboration and working together, we want to be able to reach out to lawyers in the Ukraine. And there's no way that we can do that better than having an established chapter and having a go-to point person, which we now have, to make that possible. We believe that we can all be so much better together, sharing ideas, ideals, than we can working independently. So I hope that is something that comes and we all begin to see the values of working together. The world has gotten a lot smaller, and it seems to get smaller and smaller every year. COVID is one of the things that made it very common for us to see that. We know that we all have the same values as lawyers. I talk to lawyers around the world all the time. When you talk about what's important to one, no matter where they are in the globe, it always seems so very familiar. It's the same kinds of things that we all say in our own home respective countries. So I hope that we can continue to talk and dialogue and share interests and values for the benefit of each of us as attorneys and for the benefit of our profession and the clients that we serve.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. So we have, I think, one more question, or
We
are run
don't
out.
have any other questions. I'm sure there will be many, but we will take the suggestion of the President Brown, and we will make sure that we organize these exchanges and discussions on the regular basis. And I'm sure there will be many more opportunities to ask questions during events that the Ukrainian Bar Association will organize jointly with the New York State Bar Association. And I would like to invite all the participants of today's event to follow our events, to follow our website, to follow the calendar of our activities. And as the youth says, stay tuned. And since there are no other questions or comments, I would like to, as a moderator, I would like to ask Mr. Brown if he would like to say a few words for the closure of the event, and then I would like to ask the President, Anna, to close our presentation today.
Thank you, Ina. What I'd like to do is again thank all of you for making this possible. As I've just said, we're all so much better together than we are independently. This is just the start of a conversation. I know when I was on my way to work this morning, I was excited to be meeting with people from another country, Ukraine. I spent a lot of time in Europe and other parts of the world, but I've never been to the Ukraine. As Ed said, I hope that one day we can get together and do a program in the Ukraine. We want to come there, we want to be there, we want to learn from you. We know that we can learn from you. You have a lot to teach us, and we also want to share our resources with you. Thank you for serving the profession. Thank you for speaking to the issues of importance, rule of law, the values around democracy. And I look forward to talking to you all again, hopefully sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, for sharing with us your experience. And as I mentioned, association, our two associations, divided by the ocean, but united by common goals. So rule of law, development of the legal profession, equality, it's our common goals. And together, as you mentioned, as you said, we are stronger. And we have to be global. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our guests and speakers, and thank you to all the participants for being with us, and wishing you all a very nice weekend. Thank you, colleagues. Stay in touch. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.